understood the core concept or not. In the meanwhile, what I will be doing, I will be sharing I will be sharing the PPT, which will make you understand uh, the course in a proper manner. So first of all, the syllabus which we people are dealing with, the paper which we people are dealing with is drama. So are you aware of the fact that what drama is? Just for general information, I'm asking, what is a drama if I ask you people? Because whenever we switch from, there is something that is language, and on the other hand, there is literature. So when we come to a language, language is something which is a kind of a dialect, or that is something which can be considered as a medium or a mode in which we people communicate with each other, isn't it? So we need a kind of a language. What is a literature? When we people are talking about what literature is, how do we define a literature? So literature is something where the language, because there are so many language which are still not written. So we do not have any kind of a written format. It is just a spoken kind of a language. So this is where we people are talking about literature. So literature is something which is in a written form. So wherever we people are talking about the writing, something when it's come to a writing and where it talks about the culture, where it talks about the history, so that is something which becomes a kind of a literature. So since we are going through English literature course, so here we will be just making a kind of a emphasis on a drama in England. So here we are talking about the British drama. So how drama came into existence, what is the epistemology of a drama, what do we mean by a drama, and what are uh, the factors which are responsible for the drama, as well as what are the elements in a drama. We are going to discuss all that. So this is how we are going to start. So first of all, where we people are talking about what a drama is, because this was the first question which I asked with you people, that how can we define a drama, isn't it? So drama is something which can be considered as a word which has been derived from
Vasco.
a Latin word which is known as drans, isn't it? So drans is something where there is a kind of a performance which is happening. There is a kind of an acting. So from there, this concept of drama have emerged. So it is a kind of a performance. Dance means to act, and to act means there is a kind of a story and there will be a kind of a performance. So whenever a drama is being conducted, so whenever we people are talking about drama, so if we just talk about the history of the drama, so drama actually did never emerge from the England. Drama actually emerged from the Greece. So Greece, where the people of the Greece, especially when we people are talking about the Athens. So these people were highly, highly competent. So when these you people used to play, when these people were very philosophers also. So since these people were competent, so they used to pray a kind of a god, and the name of
All
their
is
god was Dionysius.
all is good.
I
No
would
problem
like to
with that, brother.
request, please keep your phones, or please keep yourself in a mute medium because it creates a kind of a disturbance. Okay, thank you so much. So, whenever we are saying, so they used to pray the god, and the name of that god was something which can be considered as the name of the god was Dionysius. So wherever we people are saying the Dionysius, so they used to pray. And this Dionysius is a kind of a god which can be considered as a god of fertility. And most of the people, there were so many people who used to write their plays, and then they used to perform that play. And As I told you that these people were highly, highly competent, so they used to get a kind of a reward. So they used to get a first prize or a second prize or a third prize. So whenever there was a kind of a drama which was being performed, so the writers, the playwrights were, like we can say, Sophocles, Euripides. So these were the writers. Uh, they themselves used to perform a kind of a play, as well as they used to write the play, because these people used to think that since we people have written the drama, so that means somehow we people will be able to justify it. So that is from where the drama emerged. And see, whenever we are performing a kind of a drama, we always get inspired either by the character or something mainly by the hero, isn't it? We used to watch drama for our own entertainment. So during that time, that means it was around 4th or 5th of BC. So that was the time period where the Greek people, they used to perform these kind of the dramas. Whereas when we people are talking about in terms of the England or in terms of the Britain, drama was there, but that was the concept was something which was very different during that time. So here what we have seen, so they used to perform these kind of the play. And see, whenever we watch any kind of a hero or a heroine on the theater, so what happens? The expressions, the kind of the expression, the facial expressions were something which were very important. And whenever the storyline goes on, so there is a good character, there is a kind of a bad character. So the Greek people, what they did, they used to wear a kind of a mask. So the mask was the hero used to wear, the person who was of a good character, he used to wear a kind of a mask. Whereas the other person who was a villain, he used to wear a kind of mask with a sad face. Like these days, we use emoticons. So in the similar manner, during that time period, the mask was something which was very, very important whenever these people used to have a kind of a performance on stage. So mask also played a very important role. So hero is something which can be considered as the protagonist of the play, and the villain is someone who is considered as an antagonist. So uh, these were the terms which were being used during that time. And whenever we are saying that there is a drama, so whenever we are talking about a drama, definitely there will be a kind of a dialogue. So sometimes what happens then we used to hear a dialogue and we used to ratify those kind of a dialogues and whenever we go for a kind of a performance, sometimes what happens? Okay, whenever we go for a drama, sometimes there is a kind of number one, the performance, and that performance is that time people were having a kind of a liking. Only two types of the play were being performed during that time. One was the tragedy, and on the other hand, there was a comedy. So whenever we people were talking about what a tragedy is, so tragedy is something which can be considered as where the hero dies, and the comedy is something which dealt with a kind of a unification between the hero and the heroine. So that is something, but this is what, with the flow of the time, this is what we people have seen, that people of the Greek, ancient Greek, these people were having a very likening towards the tragedy. On the later half, it came toward the Roman Empire, also towards the Rome. So this is how drama flourished. When we people are talking in concept of the Britain, okay, when we people are talking about the England. So in England, drama was more given a kind of a tone of a religion. All the dramas which were performed within the premises of the church, because it was something that they wanted that through these kind of the stories, people should learn what is the difference between a good and what is bad. And even in England, wherever we people are talking about, so that is what we people have seen, that in England also the drama flourished later. That was during the Elizabethan era, because Elizabethan era is the kind of the age when Queen Elizabeth ascended the throne of Britain. And Queen Elizabeth had a liking for the theatre, for the art, and for the culture. So she always appreciated these kind of the Greek theatres. So during that time, we have seen that the first, um, that means Shakespeare was someone who can be considered as one of the esteemed playwright during the time of Queen Elizabeth. So she wanted that even in England also, this drama and culture should flourish in a very proper kind of a manner. So in England, when drama came into existence, it was during the Middle Ages. And during the Middle Ages, there was one thing, that means the three M's were someone which were being performed. The first one was the mystery play. The second one was the morality play. And the third one was the miracle play. Okay. So whenever we people are talking about what are these three M's and why we are talking about these kind of the mystery, miracle, or the morality. So here, as I was saying, that it was something which was very, very centered towards number one, religion. So that was the course of the time where they wanted that they wanted to preach Bible. So they wanted to tell the people what is good and bad. So on one hand, they used to tell through this kind of the theater only, they used to tell that yes, if we are someone who belong to the God, and if we are going to pray the God, then good things will happen to us. And the prime example for the first play which was ever being written is Everyman. So that is where they were talking about that there is good and there is bad. On the other hand, there were some kind of the stories which were being based on the stories of the Bible. So the play which were being performed based on the stories of the Bible, so those kind of the plays were known as the miracle play. Okay, on the other hand, the mystery play were the plays which were adapted from a kind of a saint life, something like that. The story of a saint was being mentioned. So that was something which was being mentioned in the another form of a play, and that is known as the mystery play. And the third form where we people are talking about, that is the morality plays. So morality plays were the plays which were being written during these kind of the Middle Ages, and they used to that was something through the kind of the stories they used to come up with the kind of the abstracts. Abstracts means that human being is someone who is going on a kind of a journey, and when they are going on a kind of a journey, they meet good people as well as the bad people. So there are some kind of the sin, so the sins are something which will always lure us, they will always attract us to do bad things. And man have a kind of a tendency to move or to shift towards these kind of the bad habits. So these kind of the plays were known as the morality, because they used to teach people that if you will do something bad, definitely you are going to go into a bad end. And if you are going to do something good, so definitely you will come up with the good things are there in your way. So this was just a kind of a basic introduction about the drama. Now we are going to deal with the course intent. Is there any question which anyone have till now regarding the drama? Because I just gave you a brief introduction about the history of the drama. Later on, there was a kind of a period that the epitome of the tragedy was something which started coming to an end. Then there was a kind of a comedy, blend of the comedy, and then there was a kind of a time period where in Britain the theaters were completely shut down for a long time period, because that was the time period when the poetry came into existence and the novel came into existence. After this gap, the theatre again came up, and that was during the war time, and that came up with the concept of the modern theatre. So, with the modern theatre, there was once again the emergence of the modern drama. So, this is how briefly we are going to discuss about the drama, and especially drama in England. So, we are going to deal with all these kind of the things. So let me share the slide with you people, and then we are going to continue the lecture. Okay. So I'm sharing my screen with you people in order to make you understand. And we are going to deal with this miracle plays and all these kind of the history through the slides. So first of all, let me share my slide with you. So is my screen visible to you people?
Yes,
Yes,
yes, yes, very
yes,
clear.
yes. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's visible.
Okay, so since it is visible, so we are going to start with the block number one. So if we just look towards the block number one, which is being given, so your unit one is someone which is being, it starts with Christopher Marlowe and the Elizabethan drama. So I'm going to start my lecture with this one only. And the play which is being included in this unit is number one, that is Dr. Faustus. So we are going to discuss about, first of all, I had just given you a little idea about the Elizabethan age, and that means where we people are talking about the English drama. Because when we people are talking about the origin of the English drama, the origin of the English drama started from the religious plays, and that was the plays of the Middle Ages, and that is something which was being called as the mystery or the miracle play. So the mystery plays were the spectacular presentation of the biblical stories. All the biblical stories were there in the mystery play, whereas the miracle plays were enacted in order of the saints. Later on, during the course of the time, and that was during the 15th century. So, this kind of the religious contents, that means instead of presenting the biblical stories, there was a kind of a shift, and that shift was something where the characters were being taken in the form of an abstract, and that was those kind of the plays were something which were being called as the morality plays. So that kind of the characters which were being portrayed in the form of the abstract character. So those can be like the love, that can be life, that can be death, that can be greed, repentance, all these. So that is how we people have seen. And when we people just talk about these kind of the plays, so all the plays which were being performed during that period of time, they always contained two or four things. There were two or four things which were important, and that was, if we just look towards the structure of the structure of the play was something which was being divided into number one. That means all the plays were being divided into five acts. So that is what we have seen. So wherever we people are talking about uh, the Christopher Marlowe. So the Christopher Marlowe can be considered as a poet and a playwright, and he belonged to, and this was someone who can be considered as a very originator of the mature English tragedy. As I told you, whenever we people are talking about a tragedy, so tragedy is something which can be considered as where the hero dies. So it always deals with a note, and that note is something which can be considered as the death. So the death of the main hero and why people were having this kind of so he was the one who started this kind of the uh, the concept of the English tragedy among this Christopher Marlowe. Uh, Christopher Marlowe was someone who was born, he was a playwright who was born in 1564 and he died in 1593. So he can be considered as one of the most intellectual of all the playwrights during the Elizabethan age in English literature. And his literary career has lasted less than 6 years, and his life was something which lasted for 29 years. So, wherever we people are talking about the Christopher Marlowe, so he was the one who has challenged the religious, social norms, and the legal norms of behavior. So this is what we have seen. So as I told you earlier that he was born in 1564 and the place where he belonged was Canterbury in England. He was a son of a shoemaker, but he was a very brilliant student. He attended the King's schools in Canterbury and the Corpus Christi College. After that, he has completed his bachelor's in art in 1584 and then he has gone to the master's degree. Later on, this is what we people have seen that the death of the playwright. So Marlowe was stabbed in the head during a bar fight with Ingram Fraser in 1593. So this was someone, and still some people are saying that there was a kind of a murder which was being done against the Christopher Marlowe. But some people say that no, his death was something which can be considered as a natural kind of a death. But still, it is something which creates a kind of a controversy. Apart from that, uh, now there is a kind of a memorial which is being dedicated, and after Marlowe, we have Shakespeare who can be considered in second number for in the Elizabethan time. So this is what we have seen that the technique which he has used was a blank verse, and that is what we have seen. And even Shakespeare was also influenced by um, Christopher Marlowe. So these are some of the, in my next slide. So this is what we can see. These are some of the major works which he has written during his course of time. And that is Edward II and the Jew of Malta and the Tambourine the Great and the Dr. Faustus. So Dr. Faustus is something which can be considered as one of the most best known kind of the play which is being written by Marlowe. So let me give you a little bit hint about the Marlowe and the Elizabethan drama. So here, where we people are talking about this, the concept of the drama. So that is, as I had earlier when I just started up my lecture, I mentioned this thing that the concept of the drama has something which has been emerged from a kind of the Greeks. So the origin was something which was from the Greeks itself, and that is what we have seen that the dramatic form. And even where we people are talking, and Greeks were the one who had a kind of a very, very likening towards um, the tragedy. So these were the one, and they were highly, highly competent, and that is what we people have seen that all these kind of the plays were being performed due to the honor of the Dionysius, which can be considered as a Greek god of vegetation and wine in the course, and that is how the drama flourished. So we have some major Greek dramatists, and they can be Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, and they had performed so many beautiful kind of the tragedies. So where we people are talking about the Elizabethan drama. So as I told you, during the reign of the Elizabeth, she was the one who wanted to bring this kind of a concept of art and literature. Why? Because she was very, very influenced by the people of the Greek, especially in terms of the kind of the culture and the artistic things which these people were having. So where we people are saying that even in the course of the Greek drama, the tragedy was something which acquired a kind of a high seriousness, and both in the form of the purpose as well as in the form of the treatment of the materials. I think you might have heard the name of the Aristotle, and Aristotle was the first Greek philosopher in the 4th century BC. And what he has done, he has presented the concept of the drama in his book, and that book is known as the Poetics. And this is where he is defining this kind of the drama, where he's talking about that tragedy can be considered as a representation of an action which is important and complete in a limited length. And it uses language which make beautiful and a different form of the play. So that is what we have seen, that where we people are talking about the mature people in the English tragedy. So we have seen that Christopher Marlowe. Apart from that, there were other playwrights also. Either we call the person who writes a play, he can be considered as a playwright or he can be considered as a dramatist. So the other dramatists were Thomas Kidd, William Shakespeare, and John Webster. But Marlowe is someone who can be considered as one of the important person who has created a new kind of a history. So Christopher Marlowe is widely regarded as most of the cerebral of his generation contemporaries during the Elizabethan period. And literary activities in England was in all time high during this period, and William Shakespeare is widely considered to have been its greatest exponent. So, as I told you earlier, also, that Shakespeare was someone who can be considered as one of the esteemed playwright who had flourished during the Elizabethan reign. We will have a brief discussion on Shakespeare in our next course of the lecture. So today we will be just talking about the Marlowe. So where we people are talking about the Marlowe, and where we people are talking about the tragedy of Dr. Faustus. So what we see in this. So most of the teachers of the drama are probably agreed that we have enough appreciation of the great plays. That means the vague, emotive kind of a generalization which this approach encourages seems, however, to cling with a particular persistence to a very great plays of the English Renaissance. So when we have gone through, because this is what we are distressed by the remarks like the following about the Dr. Faustus. So Dr. Faustus is someone which can be considered as a very beautiful play, which is being written in a very beautiful manner, and this is how it is being proceeded. So that is what we people have seen, that first of all, where we people are talking about the Elizabethan tragedy, it raises is in a form of a rational manner, and that was between the man and the nature. So that is what we have seen, that Dr. Faustus was something which was, this play was written for the Admiral men, and it was staged in 1588. Its first quarto edition was published in 1604. So Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe presents a play that is set in a time of a significant transition from a medieval period to a renaissance. So wherever we people are talking about the time of the renaissance, what is the renaissance period? So renaissance is something which can be considered as a rebirth. So rebirth is something which is a reawakening. So there were so many kind of the transitions, there were so many kind of the changes, and one of the prime example which we people have seen in the Renaissance age is that is shifting from the focus of life from God to an individual. Because where we people are talking about the new things, so new things were coming. Man was trying to explore, science was emerging, for everything man was trying to become rational, for he wanted to have a kind of a reason for all his answers. There were so, for all his questions he needed a kind of a reasonable answers. So that was the time period where so many things were happening, and that was the time period where people started questioning that how should a man relate himself to the forces within the himself and to those external to him in the environment, that is man versus nature. Because the Orthodox Christianity skirted the issue under the obligation imposed on man to obey a kind of the moral laws. This is what Christianity told them. That means you have to, and that means the morality was believe God. That means the existence of the God. So that is where this was something which was being questioned. So here the moral law should synchronize with the natural law in order to avoid the disjuncture between a man and his situation. So that is what these people have questioned. So here where we people are talking about Dr. Faustus, as you people have seen this one. So this is a very beginning scene of the play, and that is what we have seen, that wherever we people are talking about the kind of the text of the Dr. Faustus. So the original name, some people say that Dr. Faustus can be considered as um, the main, he was a legend, he was actually a man, and he lived his life. So there are two books of Dr. Faustus. So the this is how the original book is. That means the tragical history of life and death of Dr. Faustus itself exists in two versions. So we have two versions of Dr. Faustus' book. The 1604 version is called a text, is a quarto, and a smaller text. So where we people are talking about the A text. So A text was something which is a smaller version, and this text begins with one believed to be a play closer to one of that which actually performed within the Marlowe's lifetime. So this was when Marlowe was alive. So this was something which was being performed during that time. And in 1616, the version was published by John Wright, and a more enlarged and altered version is also called a B text. So B text is something that means we have two versions of Dr. Faustus, text number A and text number B. So the B text, all the editions and altercations were being made by Samuel Raleigh, William Bourne, and also possibly by Marlowe himself. So earlier it was being considered that text A was something which was being considered as a bad text as it was short. However, scholar thought that there should be more which would be written. So as I told you that where we people are talking about the tragedy of Dr. Faustus. So Faustus, some people say that he was a man who actually lived. So this is what the story is all about. What really is the Faustian legend? So where we people are talking about the legend of the Dr. Faustus, at the very basis of it, Faust himself was a prominent hero and one of the most famous legends of the Western folklore and literature. For Dr. Faustus entails the story of a German necromancer who sells his soul to a devil in exchange of knowledge and power. So here we have gone through this kind of a legend where a man makes a kind of a business of his own soul. So that is where he has signed a kind of a treaty, and that treaty is something where he has given his soul to the devil. So that is what we have seen. So the stories of these heroes were first introduced by an anonymous writer who collected the tales about Faust and compiled them to a Faust bunch. Inspired by this, in 1604, Christopher Marlowe then wrote a tragical history of life and death of Dr. Faustus, in which he is portrayed as a tragic hero. So that is what we people have seen in Dr. Faustus. So if we people are talking about what are the themes which are being mentioned in the Dr. Faustus, so this is what you will see, that there is a theme of individualism, ambition, power, good and evil, knowledge and ignorance, choices and consequences, appearance and reality, success and failure, human conditioning and meaning of life, and manipulation. So, as we have seen, so this is what we will see, that where we people are talking about Dr. Faustus. So, Dr. Faustus is a kind of a play where we talk to our students that how we will enable, that means there is a kind of a man who have sacrificed either their interest or his self-respect. So if we people are talking about the lines which is being, let me begin with those lines, the most beautiful that Marlowe have written. He has written more than once, as a matter of a fact, when they first appear, and that is what he is saying. There is a very little kind of a difference over there. That is where there is a, since this is a kind of an irony, and that is very characteristic in a Marlowe verse, and that he intentionally and stressing in an ironic implication of eternity and immoral. So this is where we have seen that if he forsake me not, I never die, for in his look I see eternity, and he will make me immortal with a kiss. So these are very beautiful lines from Dr. Faustus. So this is where we people have seen that when the play begins. So the main protagonist of this play is Dr. Faustus, as we have seen, and another kind of a character is Mephistopheles. Apart from that, we have a good angel and a bad angel. Then we have uh, Lucifer. Lucifer can be considered as the prince of devil or one of the fallen angel. And these were some of the, one was the Wagner can be considered as the servant of Dr. Faustus, and Valdes and Cornelius were the friends of Dr. Faustus. So here, let before understanding the concept of the Dr. Faustus, first of all, we will be just going through what this Dr. Faustus is all about. So where we people are talking about Dr. Faustus. So Dr. Faustus is can be considered as a well-respected German scholar, and he was someone who was very dissatisfied with the limits of a traditional form. So when the play begins, we see a kind of a scholar who is fed up with all the kind of the scholarly studies. And what he says that no, I don't want to study physics, I don't want to study mathematics, I don't want to study law. And what he is doing, he doesn't want to study medicine, neither religion, because this is what he is saying, that I had learned everything. So the play begins with a scholar who is taking up the books and he's just throwing his books here. This medicine also I had studied. So what does this scene makes? The scene makes a kind of a sense, and that sense is where he believes that I do not want to study anymore because I had already studied all these kind of the religion as well as the philosophies. What I am interested is in these kind of the structures. What are these triangles? What are these circles? These this is something which is attracting me. He is attracted towards these kind of practices, which can be considered as the black arts. So that is what we have seen. That he is fed up with all his studies and he is getting attracted towards the black art, or what we can say that towards the black magic. So he has done with everything. Some critics say that just because uh, this is a kind of a term which people are saying, that is hubris. You know what hubris is? Hubris is something which deals with, which will definitely take you towards a kind of a disaster. That is something which leads to a kind of a hamartia, according to Aristotle. So this is what hubris is. What is the concept of the hubris and what is hamartia? So hamartia is something which will lead towards a failure, which will lead you towards your death. Because as I told you that whenever we people are talking about a tragedy, there is a kind of a death of the main protagonist. And why the main character dies? Because there is a kind of a hubris. And now where we people are talking about what hubris is. So hubris can be any kind of a flaw. That flaw can be either sometimes, see, we all are heroes or in our life. We always wanted to do good things, isn't it? But we have certain kind of the flaws. And those flaws are something which are there within us. Sometimes these kind of the flaws can be like extreme pride, anger, ambition. Sometimes this can be curiosity. Sometimes it can be any kind of a flaw in your character which becomes a kind of a weakness. And this is a major reason for any kind of a tragedy. So this is what we have seen. Even in this play, Dr. Faustus. So Dr. Faustus has a kind of a quench, and that was insatiable curiosity. That means man is very, very curious. You know what curiosity is? Curiosity is something where we always want to find a kind of an answer. And that answer is something where we people can say that why this thing is happening, why not? We have so many questions. How, why, where, when. So this is that means we are very, very curious for getting all the kind of the answers. Here, insatiable curiosity. Insatiable curiosity means a kind of the questions which where you should not look. That curiosity is something which is taking you towards a kind of a negative path, a negative way. So same was there with Dr. Faustus. We cannot find any kind of a harm in this character. If you will read this play, you will definitely find that you will have a kind of a sympathy for this man. Why? Because he was learning each art and culture in a very proper manner. And finally, what happens? He says that no, I'm done with this, and I just wanted to know what this black art is, what this black magic is. On the other hand, what happens? All his friends, like Valdes and Cornelius, they instruct him that black art, and he may begin his new career as a magician. Okay, so he thought that since I had done with all these kind of the books, all these kind of the stories, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to practice all these things. So finally, what he does, he just goes inside his room and he makes a kind of a circle, and he takes that kind of a book, which can be considered as a book of black magic, and he started summoning all these kind of the words. Once he started these kind of the word, what happens? Somewhere the devil hears his voice. And the devil hears his voice. And who is the king of the devil? The king of the devil is Lucifer. So what Lucifer says that he sends uh, one of his angel towards that place. We cannot call that man as an angel, but he sends Mephistopheles over there. So Mephistopheles turns up in front of Dr. Faustus. And Dr. Faustus, as soon as he sees, then he becomes very happy because he thought that finally all these things are unfolding, and he says this is where he is very happy, and this is where he feels that he is trying. Am I audible? Can you people hear me? Yes or
Yes,
no?
yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yes,
okay.
yes,
Okay,
yes,
there
ma'am.
was a kind of a technical glitch, so that is why I was thinking that whether I got disconnected or not. So it created a kind of a confusion. See, at any point, if you are having any kind of a disturbance, please do let me know. Okay, and please do let me know if you have any kind of a query. So what happens? He started saying strange words, and Mephistopheles appears in front of him, and he says that since you were calling us, so what do you want to know? So Dr. Faustus is very happy, and he says that I have so that was something which was a very different kind of a question for even Mephistopheles also, because nobody can be immortal. But somehow he says that, okay, we will make you immortal because here itself he mentions this kind of a thing that I had learned everything and I want to explore the world and I want to do everything. And Mephistopheles somehow he convinced him that, okay, if you want to learn all these things, you have to accept whatever we are saying. So if you will see this one, so this is what he makes a kind of. He talks about so many things that Mephistopheles is talking about, the horror of the hell, and then he says that, okay, if you want to become immortal, but for that you have to do one thing. What is that thing? That you have to exchange your soul with Lucifer, and that is for 24 years. So that is what he is saying, that you just somehow you exchange your soul. So if you give this soul to us, then we can proceed further. So Faustus loved the thing of this word because he was very fascinated with this kind of a black magic, and he was willing to sacrifice his soul in order to free them for a time. So that is what we have seen, that he wanted that, yes, I wanted to know some other wonders. So he says that, yes, I'm ready. So Lucifer, Mephistopheles, he became very happy, and he just went back to Lucifer, and he told Lucifer that Faustus has accepted the offer, and then Faustus experienced some misgiving and wonders if he should repent and save his soul, and that is what these people say. Okay, so finally, Lucifer also appears in front of the Dr. Faustus, and he says, okay, uh, I will give you a slave, and this slave is Mephistopheles. And what he is going to do, he's going to give you a kind of an offer that he will fulfill all your wishes. Whatever you demand, whatever you will ask, Mephistopheles will say yes to it. So if you want to make him his slave, So definitely you have to exchange your soul. But the condition is that you have to drop your blood. You have to sign a kind of a treaty, and that is something which is with your blood. And that is something which is being considered. So, both what happens, these people, both the Lucifer as well as uh, the Mephistopheles, they wanted to take the blood. They wanted to prick his hand. They just wanted to pierce the blood. But there is something which is resisting. They were not able to take out his blood, as if his body was rejecting that we do not want to exchange. We do not, please don't exchange your soul to the devil. But this is something which can be considered as a homofuge. Homofuge means, that means it is a Latin term. O man fly up a brand on his arm. So what happens? He says that somehow his body also rejects, but finally what he does, he signs a treaty, and then he says, now you are the master, and we will do everything for you. Whatever you ask me, we will do. So now Dr. Faustus become very happy, and he says that okay. So what he does, Mephistopheles brings all the kind of the good things in front of him. He says that I will make you the richest man in this world, whatever. I will take you on a kind of a journey. If you want to see the heaven, we will show you the heaven. We will show you the hell. Whatever you want to see, we will show you. So now, and with his new powers, because here he is someone who is there with a kind of a misunderstanding, and he believes that finally I am the one who knows everything. So he started his journey with Mephistopheles. So Faustus started to travel. So this is what we see, that he goes to the Pope's court in Rome, and that was something where there was a kind of a false image. There is a kind of a comic element over here also, because this is what, in that court in the Rome, he makes himself invisible and plays a series of tricks. He disrupts the Pope's banquet by stealing food and boxing with the Pope's ears. Following this incident, then again he goes to the court of the Europe with his fame spreading as he goes, and eventually he is invited to the court of the German Emperor, that is Charles V, that can be considered as the enemy of the Pope, who asked Faustus to allow him to see Alexander the Great, famed by the 4th century. So here, this is a very important kind of a line where they are saying that where he went to these kind of the places, he wanted to see the Alexander the Great, he wanted to see the Macedonian king and the conqueror. Faustus conjures up the image of the Alexander, and Charles is suitably impressed. The knight scoffs and the Faustus powers, and the Faustus chastises him by making antler. So all these things are happening right in front of him, and he is very, very happy. So in the meanwhile, when he was doing all these kind of the activities, so what happened? Faustus now has secluded himself with everyone, because he was so happy with that kind of a devil that he doesn't wanted to be with his students. He has separated his servant Wagner also. So now they wanted to see that what is happening with this. If you see this kind of a picture, you can see on one hand we have Dr. Faustus, and on the other hand, so somewhere what he's doing, he's submitting his everything towards the devil, because he is all into these kind of the devilish activities. But somehow he realizes, because where I was talking about, I quoted a kind of a term, and that was insatiable curiosity. He was very, very curious. So in the meantime, when he was having these kind of the funs where he was able to reincarnate himself, he was able to change himself, he was able to make himself invisible. That time he questioned that what this way is going towards. and that was the path which can be considered as the path towards the god. During these times, Mephistopheles, being so clever, he said, no, you don't go towards these kind of the questions. These questions uh, will lay you towards the path of the sin. If you are going to do like this, then I will leave you. And somehow, there he was thinking that I am becoming the master of Mephistopheles. Actually, there was it was something else which was happening. He was not the master. Actually, he was the slave. He was all following, Dr. Faustus was all following the instructions of Mephistopheles as well as Lucifer. So these people were instructing him. So somehow he realizes that there is something which is wrong, which is happening with me. And the treaty was something which was being signed for few days or for a very few time period. As the days goes on, he realizes that there is something wrong which is happening. In the meanwhile, where so many things were happening, there were two more things. That means the the good angel as well as the bad angel. So there were two inner voice which were coming from his mind, and they had a kind of a appeal that no, Faustus, this is something which is wrong. What you are doing, you have damned yourself through these kind of egocentric kind of the indulgence, which is beyond repair. Because what you are doing, you are someone who are making certain kind of the wrong decisions. You cannot follow the good thing. Even the devil is prompting him to do something bad, and but it was too late for him. Faustus goes on with his travel. He never listened to the good angel as well as the bad angel. He overheard them, and then finally Foster goes on to the travel, playing the tricks on the horses. Foster sells himself. Sells him a horse that turns into a heap of a straw and ridden to a river. Eventually, Faustus is also invited in a court of a Duke of Van Hock, where he performs various feasts. The horse courser shows up along with a Robin, a man named Dick, various others who had fallen the victim to the Foster's trickery, but Foster casts spell on them and sends them away for the amusement of the Duke and the Duchess. So he never realized that what has happened, and finally the 24 years are done. He never realizes that where these 24 years is. So as the 24 years of his deal with Lucifer come to the close, Faustus begin to dread with his impending death. So finally, the last wish of uh, Dr. Faustus was that he wanted uh, the Mephistopheles call up the Helen of Troy. And Helen of Troy is someone who can be considered as the most beautiful lady. And that was something where that is something which is being given in Act Fifth, and it says it creates a kind of a irony, and that is where Dr. Foster says, with the shadow of a shadow, which is there is a kind of a conjuring which is being done. That sweet Helen, make me immortal with a kiss. So that kind of a question, that kind of a state of mind where he wanted that he has given his everything to both Mephistopheles as well as somewhere he was into. He never realized that why bad things are happening to him, why he is indulged in all these kind of the demonic activity. So as the Helen of Troy comes in front of him, the famous beauty from the ancient world, and uses her presence to impress the group of the scholar, the old man urges Faustus to repent. So that time also there is an old man who comes over Dr. Faustus and he says, see, still there is a time. Please don't go on the wrong side. God will God will still forgive you. Ask for a repentance. You will get a kind of a time. There is a kind of a Catholic thing over here also. That means if a person is going on a wrong way, so what happened? His friends, his scholars, they started prayers. They wanted to pray in order for a safe and healthy life for Dr. Faustus. So that is what they have seen. So on the final night before the expiration of the 24 years, Faustus has overcome by the fear and remorse. It was too late for the Faustus, but he thinks for the mercy. But at the midnight, what happens? The devil appears, and finally they take his soul and they went to the hell. Okay, so in the morning they could not see the Dr. Faustus. So this is undoubtedly a very good kind of a play. But here, what we have seen, Dr. Faustus explains a kind of a moment in a history, and that is a kind of a tragedy, and that is irreducibly the national or a cultural predicament. As a dramatic genre, it has all the essential to go with it because this is what we people have seen that the tragedy, especially tragedy, is a very powerful discipline in a particular point of time and a place. And this is how we people have seen that Dr. Faustus come to realize through this play, we come to realize that there is a kind of a power in tragedy. So that power is something which we people have seen in this play. Because here, when we just look towards the play in the beginning, it has questioned so many kind of a thing, so many kind of a theological or a human implication. And when we just look towards the Marlowe's character, and that is something when we just look towards Dr. Faustus. So that is what we have seen in Dr. Faustus. He has all these kind of a vision. That means Dr. Faustus is a tragic vision of heroic human possibility. In every tragic premise, Dr. Faustus is just an antithesis of a protagonist of a morality play. Because here, when we people are talking about Dr. Faustus, he is a doctor of a divinity and he is the master of so many human sciences, like where we people, because Faustus, and when we are implementing doctor with it, so doctor means that he have studied through different kind of the philosophies, he has understood all these kind of the things, and that can be considered as he has mastered each and every subject. Faustus can be considered as that he was fully aware of the nature and indispensability of the religion faith on one hand. On the other hand, he was knowing about the possibilities of the human excellence and the achievement. Where we people are talking about the religion. So religious faith is a positive and humble acceptance of human possibilities and a formulation of the concept of the power which is superior to the man and omnipotent in itself. And similarly, where we people are talking about non-religious human learning, where he was talking about the black art or where he was talking about the black magic. So this is what we people have seen that uh, where we people can see that the pride, whether it is religious or secular, it creates a kind of, there is no kind of a scope where people are questioning that human being can achieve in religion or any kind of a godly power in human learning. So that is something which we have seen, and even with this kind of a play, that means the tragedy. So here we have seen that even he is the hero himself, who has all the kind of the knowledge, who has all the kind of an understanding. but he himself become a kind of a victim of the situation, and that situation is something which can be considered as uh, it. That means maybe his hubris, maybe his insatiable curiosity, maybe he wanted to understand all the goods and the bad things, and in the middle of it, he lost himself, and that can be considered as which leaded towards his tragic end. So, though as a dramatic narrative, Dr. Faustus is a Christian morality play. Because here, what we have seen, there is an evolution of a Dr. Faustus, which is intensely heroic protagonist, and he has that means he himself is meeting all these kinds, the abstract ideas, which can be that means the evil, that means the pride is there, the love is there, um, all the kind of the sins are there in front of Dr. Faustus. He is being given a kind of a time that repent, repent, either in the form of the old man or either in the form of his scholars who says that please don't go, don't do it, Faustus. Even the blood, homofuge, where the blood, his body is saying the blood is not coming out from his body. So that means somewhere, some force, some nature is there who is saying that don't make this treaty, don't sign this treaty, don't give your soul to the demon. So that is what we people have seen. That here, when we people are talking, especially in terms of Dr. Faustus, we have seen that his kind of boundless ambition, and at the same time, this is what we have seen that it had the play have questioned a kind of an effectiveness of the cultural aspiration of the shape of his ambition. And that is where we people have seen a kind of ambiguity means or ambivalence of a cultural situation where the characters are being placed, because he knew Marlowe was acutely aware of the substantial failure of his career, because Faustus loved the things of this world, and that is the only reason why he was willing to exchange all his why he was willing to exchange his um, soul to the demon. So that is what we people have seen. That means his question, his knowledge, even even we people have seen. Okay, so that is where we see that Marlowe's achievement in Dr. Faustus. So Dr. Faustus can be considered as a static play of tragic irresolution. Even during this time also it can uh, put a kind of a question. So he was very, very passionate. Okay, and that is where in one of the act also he says that he saw the that is where the Mephistopheles says that he saw the face of the god and tasted the eternal joy of heaven. So that is where he is trying to tell everything to Dr. Faustus that we have seen, and with the power that is what we people have seen, that scientific knowledge is like the power of black magic. So this tendency, realization of the pageant and the sensuous delight of Helen and Cressida with an empirical method of investigating a natural world was a common enough in a Renaissance world. So that is what we people have seen in this play, especially in the middle section of the third and the fourth act, which are meant to distract Faustus. That distracts the audience as well. Because when he is so much involved in all these kind of the demonic activities, where he is so much indulged with all these kind of the things, He was not able, because this was his choice, that uh, there was no kind of a fear of God in him. The fear of God and the domination or the trust of the devil. Because where we people are talking about the God, God is a heavenly joy of human limitation, and devil is something which can be considered as an appetite of human aspiration. So that is where he wanted to get a kind of an excellence. So Marlowe had a twofold aim in the play. He would write a morality play and hence substantial status in a comedy and undramatically play associated with a moral tradition. That if you will do bad, somehow in the terms of the learning, you are going for a bad process. So the twofold plays as J.P. Beauregard serves the purpose for the audience. So that is where we people, that means there is a, in fear, we see a littleness in power of a man, and that is where we share a kind of his suffering and endorse his protest. And there is one more thing which we people have seen, that there is an ironic implementation, and that irony, and there is a kind of a tragic dilemma in Dr. Foster's. And first of all, where we people can say ki what this irony is. So irony can be considered as a literary device where the chosen words are intentionally used to indicate the meaning other than the literal one. So even it is often associated with a kind of a sarcasm, and that sarcasm can be considered as a kind of a verbal irony, or where it is that sarcasm is intentionally insulting. So that is something which we people have seen in the in the play of this Dr. Faustus, because the basic irony of the Faustus aspiration is one of the misplacement. Because he was the one, he himself, he misplaces human learning in the realm of religion and power, and the power of the religion in the realm of human learning and achievement. Because this is what we people have seen. He wishes to be divine in show, and he want to live as well as he wanted to die. So that is the divine show wants, that means Faustus' want is not God but of a man. And that is where we people have seen that somewhere he wanted to live eternally and also raise the dead in his life. So there are two things, and where we people are talking about the Faustus tragic drama. So this is where we people have seen the dilemma of Dr. Faustus is something where he's talking about the religion, and then also uh, he's not able to understand because he wanted to understand the black magic. So that is where he wanted to understand the good also, and he wanted to understand the bad also. And that is why he's so much, he was thinking that all these necromantic books are something which are very, very heavenly. And somewhere he wanted to reject the norms of the God. And he wanted, and he's the one, Dr. Faustus is the one who rebels against the God. But the divine consciousness is characterizes even in his rebellion. Because that is what we people have seen. God always continues to be measure of all the things in Dr. Faustus. Because even if we see the dialogues of Mephistopheles, even when we talk about Dr. Faustus himself, there is a kind of an existence of God. So that is where, that means, which leaded toward a kind of a tragic dilemma in Dr. Faustus, is it doesn't rest between his choice, that is the choice which he made between the God and the devil, but their inseparable coexistence within his human condition. That means where we people can say the fear of the God and the damnation. He himself was responsible for his own damnation because he believed in devil instead of God. With God, he could have enjoyed all the heavenly joys, but the devil was something which always talked about that, yes, I will give you everything, but that was not there. Because where we people are talking about God and the devil, they define man in a mutuality and confront him with an acute tragic dilemma. So that is what we people have seen. That means there is a kind of a promise and there is a kind of a possibility. So somewhere he himself was putting him putting himself into a kind of a slave. He himself was becoming a kind of a slave where the devil, he was becoming a kind of a victim of the devil's temptation, distraction, and even the sovereign power. For Dr. Faustus was under this kind of an impression, yes, that I'm powerful, where he was not. And he was seeing all these things. That means he was very, very obedient to the devil. And his faithlessness to the God bring him toward a kind of a fate, and that fate was where he died and he was directly being taken towards the hell. Another thing where we people will be talking about, and that is the concept of the morality play. So this play falls into the category of the morality play, and it throws a kind of a light towards the morality play. And what is this morality play all about? If you just look towards the morality, so during the Middle Ages, so this was the time period when where these kind of the morality plays were being performed. So during the Middle Ages, in order to make church teaching accessible to the common people, clergymen began to dramatize the story from the Bible. As I told you in the beginning of my lecture, so this is how it started. It started up with the three M's. So three M's is something where um, in order to make people understand one thing, that means people used to come up with the stories of the Bible, and that was the history play, and even the number one thing, that is the life of the saint. So finally, after this, there was a kind of a concept, and that was something which can be considered as morality play. So I gave you this example that every man is something which was the first morality play which was being written in the end of the 15th century, and that is what the every man came up with. That is uh, the message of the play was that when we die, we take nothing with us from the world except the record of our good deeds. So what we take with us is nothing. Whatever good we people have done is something which we are going to take once we die. So then, during the Elizabethan time period, the morality play grew more sophisticated as the time went by and set the stage for the Elizabethan drama and the geniuses such as Shakespeare. So where we people are talking about the morality play. So this is what we have seen. They have used a kind of a character which indicated their allegorical significance, such as truth, gluttony, king, mankind. So all these were the techniques which were being used during this kind of the time period. So that is something which can be considered as one of the major epitome of the morality play. So here there are certain kind of the elements which we can identify in this play itself. That means the morality play elements which can be seen over here. That is in Dr. Faustus. We have good angel as well as the bad angel. So one is saying that please do good things, don't become the victim, and on the other hand, there is a bad angel. Marlowe deviates a bit from the traditional morality plays, however, and then what we have seen, Marlowe helps the reader to understand his view of religion and morality. So that is how he, even the Marlowe, through his character, Dr. Faustus, he has shown that there are certain kind of the series of the episodes which exploits this central metaphor of the play, that is the power of the reason and the scientific thinking. With all that he can do for us, and all it will do for us was the power of the black magic. So that is where, that means out of his curiosity, he just wanted to learn. He being a learner, he being a student, and that is where he showed his interest towards these kind of activities, and then finally what he that leaded towards his damnation, and that damnation was something which leaded towards his death. So that is what we people have seen in the entire play, and this is all about Dr. Foster's. So now I'm just going to stop my slide sharing, and yes. So is there any question which you people have to ask? So we have already done with this Dr. Foster's. So is there any people are having for Dr. Foster's?
Sorry, I got a question.
Yeah, please.
Can you specifically tell me who is Lucifer? I don't know who Lucifer is because we were talking a lot about Lucifer. If you tell me something about Lucifer specifically, that would be nice.
Okay. So here where we people are talking in context with the Lucifer, Lucifer can be considered as the as the god of um, the devils. So he can be considered as
Yeah.
the master, the main master who was responsible. And as per the biblical norms, as you people are already aware, that some people say that Lucifer can be considered as one of the fallen angels, because he was the
Oh,
one who was there in the heaven. Because if you just go towards the myth, so the myth itself says that the Garden of the Eden, which talks about um, the Adam and the Eve, the first existence of the God, even the human beings. So there, God has made a devil, and that devil was something which was in a shape of a serpent. There are so many people who believe these kind of the things, and this Lucifer was someone who was being expelled from the heaven because he went against towards the will of the God. And this is what we people have seen as per the story of the Bible itself. It says that it was the Lucifer who attracted Eve to eat that forbidden apple. And that was the only reason why they were being thrown. And that was the time period where this Lucifer thought that I'm going to have a kind of a war against God. I'm going to stand against the God because God has expelled me from the heaven. So, what was happening whenever there was a kind of a death? So, this is, if you will see the images, you will find that on one hand we have God, and on the other hand we have the devil. So, it depends on, and if a person dies, if he has done bad things, then definitely he will go to the army of the Lucifer, and if he will do good, then the God will take his soul. So that kind of a concept was something during the age of this Elizabethan era when this Marlowe was writing. So Lucifer was exchanging human souls because he wanted to fight against God. So that is how it is being projected. So he's the God. So he's the one who is sending Mephistopheles everywhere. And Mephistopheles can be considered as one of his slave, Lucifer's slave, who is working on the command of Lucifer. Because in the end, because Lucifer doesn't turn up. If you will see, Lucifer will never turn up over here. He turns up only in the end. And why he turns up? Because when there was a exchange of the soul, that for 24 years, Mephistopheles is going to serve Dr. Faustus. But the condition is he has to sign a treaty, and that is through his blood. Because if you sign a treaty through his blood, again in the form of the Christianity, it is being considered as the purest form. Yeah, is there any other question?
Hi
Yeah.
everyone. Dear teacher, can you tell me about the morality of morality? What is the specific morality play, or what is the message of morality play?
See, the message of a morality play is that if we are doing good things, so that means we will definitely go towards the heaven. And through morality, the morality play only teaches and preaches one thing, that we only have to follow, we do not have to follow the path of the bad things. That means where we people can say gluttony, pride. So if these things appear, they are very, very tempting, but they will take us to a kind of a path, and that path is towards the path of the sin. So it's better, it teaches that how we can live our life by doing good deeds. So that is the main
Good,
context.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. Any other question?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
the
one more
professor.
student have
Hello.
raised hand. Yeah.
Uh, Professor, I have a small
Yeah,
question,
please.
and that is related to blank verse. I'm not very clear about this because if you could provide me a little explanation about
I'm not able to hear you. As per my understanding, this is the kind of question which you have asked, that what is the concept of a blank verse, isn't it? So blank verse is something which can be considered as a mode of a writing, and that is wherever we are talking about the writing over here. So it doesn't have any kind of a rhyme and a meter. So if you will just look towards the dialogue, so they are written in a free verse. Okay, that means in a form of a poetry. So that is something which can be considered as a blank verse. Is there any other question?
Hello, Professor. Do you hear me?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I can.
good. Actually, I want to thanks a lot from you for your nice presentation. Actually, it is
Thank you so much.
not a question. Just I want to request from you that at the end of the lessons, can you share the slides with us that we study by ourselves again?
Yeah, I think you have all my slides and PPT were being made from the content which is being given to you on British drama. So definitely I will be
Yeah,
sharing my notes. Yeah.
yeah, we have
So,
that. Those are PDF, and your
hmm.
slides are like summary is better for study. near of that materials, we will study both of them.
Yeah. So the content is already available to you. Apart from that, I will
Yes.
be sending some more notes to
Yeah.
the regional center. So most probably you will be getting those notes through mail.
Yes. Good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Any other question? So
Okay. How are you, dear classmates? How was the presentation in our lesson?
Uh, Alijan, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Yeah. Alijan, we didn't ask about asked our professor that she taught us. So we should talk about that which materials we have to learn, for example, which things we should learn.
Yes, sir, the materials that shared before for us about all of the subjects. There is in PDF. Told me that you can study the materials that shared before with you.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly for the assignment that from where to start our assignments. So we should ask from her that how to write, for example, an assignment and from where to start. So I am a little bit confused about that.
Yes, I'm confused too because up to now we didn't start our lessons, and that the homeworks or assignments were not clear for us. But after that, we can start our assignments from this subject, British drama, and the pattern of assignments are uploaded, and also the questions are uploaded in the LMS portal accounts. You can download, and there is some questions that we answer. Actually, I didn't do my assignment too.
Okay, okay, that's great. So we have to, for example, we have to start our assignments, or we have to, for example, ask from the professor that from where to start our assignments and which things or which materials we have to learn. So these things are so crucial for us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is also confusable for me because